Right off the bat, this is going to be a longer movie review, so if you're not down to listen, then just don't watch it. So this movie review is going to be for Mandy. It is a film starring Nicolas Cage. I was going to watch this film in theaters, but something sort of in my gut told me not to pay for it. So I waited for the library to grab it. I got it from the Speed Reads, so I wasn't able to, model it for the review. Mandy is a psychedelic action film directed by Panos Cosmatos. If you're not familiar with him, he is the son of George P. Cosmatos. He is the director of the movie Tombstone and Cobra, I believe, with Sylvester Stallone. Panos Cosmatos' first film was 2010's Beyond the Black Rainbow. Beyond the Black Rainbow has an amazing style and synth score. It's about like a young woman captured by like some sort of organization and she's trying to escape. It's a very trippy, almost like a lava lamp type movie. Ridiculous ending, makes a terrible film. But so that was the thing that made me sort of hesitant to watch this film. However, it's got a solid 92% on Rotten Tomatoes. And they said the performance by Nicolas Cage is amazing, and I like Andrea Riseborough. So this movie is about Red and Mandy. They're a couple. He is a lumberjack, I believe. And they live a nice idyllic life in in this middle of nowhere, peaceful. And one day Mandy goes for a walk and a smoke, and this cult leader spots her from his car, Jeremiah Sand. He is a pretentious prick, and he's in a rut, and he wants Mandy. He just demands her, and he's the type of person that he snaps his fingers and people do what he says. So one night while Red and Mandy are sleeping, Jeremiah's point man uses this sort of weird horn and summons these demonic like bikers with like metal with armor and stuff like that. They're very... We find out later why they're so weird. But anyways, the bikers attack Mandy and Red. They take Mandy, they drug her. She's drugged out of her mind, and Jeremiah pretty much gives her a sort of speech of like what he's all about, and he wants to basically have her. And she laughs in his face. So they take Red and they tie him up with barbed wire and stab him. And then they do terrible things to Mandy. And this all happens within the first hour of the film. So nothing really happens for the first 20 to 30 minutes. It's mostly just Red and Mandy just living in the middle of nowhere. And they have that assault sequence with the psychedelic style that Panos Cosmatos is known for. However, after they leave, the movie drops the synth score and the style. So the rest of the movie is just a basic generic revenge movie. Red escapes the barbed wire, gets some weapons, goes after the bikers, and he goes after the rest of the cult. This movie doesn't really offer anything in terms of cinematic quality. Red basically goes after all these people, and there's no sense of satisfaction with the kills. There's no sense of cathartic release, because it's just him doing violent things to people without much effort. Like, I know he's a lumberjack, so he's got strength, but he's got some fight moves in there for some reason. The movie just doesn't have any suspense or tension or stakes in the second half of the movie, even though, it's gory and it's filled with scenes that happen, but they're not stylish, they don't have any purpose. And I kind of didn't like that. If this movie has any redeeming quality whatsoever, I guess Nicolas Cage gives a solid performance. He's very similar to Leonardo DiCaprio in The Revenant, where in that movie Leo spends a lot of his time grunting and you just see the emotion on his face as he's trying to get home. In this movie's the same. Red doesn't have a lot of dialogue. Most of the acting is done through grunts and like the look on his face and his actions. However, the movie is just it doesn't have any sense of purpose. 92% are Rotten Tomatoes. People liked it because it's like a fever dream, but the movie doesn't use the aesthetic that Panos Cosmatos used in Beyond the Black Rainbow. He only uses it at the beginning of the film, and that's it. And the movie has a good quality because all of the villains are played by no-name actors. That gives it a little bit more realism. However, there just is no sense of stakes. This movie doesn't have a purpose. It doesn't have a character arc for Red. It doesn't have any reason. It doesn't have any character development. It just feels like Nick Cage got tricked or paid into doing a student film. This movie has no like benefit to cinema. The movie feels masturbatory at times, really. The opening sequence is like 30 minutes long. It's just Red and Mandy doing things. They could have easily shaved that off. Also, there's a scene with Jeremiah, and he's talking to Mandy, and she's drugged out of her mind. He goes on, and like a lot of these scenes just sort of like, just these characters like to talk, and it gets really grating, and the movie is a full 2 hours long. It could have been a lot shorter. Regardless, some of the action sequences do not make sense, really. There's a scene where Red escapes, and then he like punches a guy and then throws him over. There's a bottomless pit in a basement for no reason. Like, why is there a bottomless pit in this basement? Like, why? Why is that even there? Things just don't make sense. I knew that this movie could have had a chance of being awful because I didn't like Beyond the Black Rainbow, but this movie was trash. I mean, besides Nicolas Cage is like the only redeeming factor, but it's not enough to elevate this film beyond anything worth watching. Same with Andrea Riseborough. She's barely in the film, so you can't really gauge a performance because she's barely in the film. The guy who plays Jeremiah Sand is okay. As I said, if you were to switch out Nicolas Cage with anyone else and Andrea Riseborough, this movie wouldn't have as much swell or notice as your typical film. It's not going to be a cult classic. This movie is trash. I give Mandy a 0 out of 10.